Hello, I'm Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine. Here bringing you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. It is currently the eve of November 24, 2023 in the United States and the morning of November 25, 2023 in the Middle East. The 4-day truce between Israel and Hamas to facilitate a hostage exchange and the release of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for the Israeli hostages has been maintained largely in the last 24 hours. At 4:30 in the afternoon in the Middle East, the first hostages were transferred to the Red Cross in the Gaza Strip. By 4:41 in the afternoon, they had crossed over to Egypt and have since been returned to Israel and are in Israeli hospitals. In accordance with the deal, 13 Israelis, these include a mother and 2 daughters, another mother and daughter, a grandmother, mother, and 9-year-old son, and 5 additional women were released. This is part of the agreement between Israel and Hamas. It is going to include the release of women, children, and specifically mothers and their children. Among those who were released, there are often family members, spouses, and sometimes fathers who were left behind or still in captivity. Among those released, there are 4 German citizens. In addition to this, an additional 11 foreign citizens were released. These are primarily foreign international workers from Thailand who had been kidnapped on October 7th. They were working in the agricultural fields in the southern parts of Israel. The government of Thailand had negotiated directly with Hamas, mediated by Iran and Qatar. This has nothing to do with the deal between Israel and Hamas. Hamas said that they were going to release the foreign workers unconditionally. A total of 11 of them were released in this first day. These included 10 Thai citizens and 1 citizen of the Philippines. All of those released were men. I emphasize that only because there are reports that one woman from Thailand had given birth in captivity. She was not among those who were released. According to different reports, the government of Thailand is saying that they still have upwards of 20 citizens that are being held in the Gaza Strip, and the Philippines are still looking if they have 1 more citizen that is being held. In accordance with the deal, 2 hours after the Israelis were released, 39 Palestinian prisoners were released from Israeli jails. These include 24 female prisoners and 15 males who are under the age of 19. According to reports relating to the Israeli hostages, they are all in relatively good medical condition, and they are mostly reported as being exhausted, although Israel is not releasing a lot of information regarding what their actual medical condition is. In addition, Hamas has already transferred the list of names of those hostages that are going to be released tomorrow. According to speculations, the release is going to happen slightly earlier than 4 in the afternoon due to the regulations in accordance with the deal, that Israel is not allowed to have any aerial activity in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, so there's speculation that they will be released before 4 in the afternoon. However, that is not confirmed. According to different leaks, this is not substantiated, a total of 13 hostages are going to be released again. These will include 8 children, and the rest are women, presumably their mothers. Reuters also reported that more Thai citizens are expected to be released in the coming days. According to various estimates, the hostages that were released in the last 24 hours were all initially held already in the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. So while Israel has identified that some hostages were held in the north of the Gaza Strip, it is speculated that these hostages all along were held in the south. And according to various reports, Israel is hoping that Hamas is going to try to extend the truce by a couple extra days by releasing more hostages. In accordance with the initial deal, if Hamas releases upwards of 10 more hostages, they can quote-unquote buy themselves additional days of truce after the initial 4 days. Israel is drawing hope from the fact that in this initial release, in the first day, Hamas not only released its own captives, but also 1 captive from the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, suggesting that there is coordination between the groups and Hamas may be able to buy more hostages in order to get more days of truce. At this point, this is all speculation. There's still points of disagreements between Hamas and Israel regarding each side living up to their end of the deal. According to Israel, part of the deal was that the Red Cross would visit all of the hostages that remain in captivity and will be able to deliver to them medical supplies and examine them. Hamas is saying this is not part of the deal and they are refusing to live up to this. Israel is saying that Qatar and Egypt are guarantors that Hamas live up to its end of the deal, and they are expecting that those 2 countries force Hamas to live up to it. In turn, Hamas is also saying that part of the deal was that Israel release the Palestinian prisoners in accordance with their ages, from the oldest one to the youngest one, and instead they're not doing that they're releasing them at random, so to speak, so each side is accusing the other one of not living up to the deal. According to the reports, right now there are still roughly 212 hostages that remain in captivity in the Gaza Strip. Moving on to the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip last 24 hours, as I said, the truce was largely upheld. It went into effect at 7 a.m., and with the exception of 1 rocket that was launched at 7:15 a.m., there has been no fighting reported. IDF soldiers are reported to be on high alert, and the IDF sent a message to Hamas in which they said if the truce is violated, and I'm quoting, it will be answered with a disproportionate fire. Leading up to 7 a.m., both sides had intensified the fighting. According to reports, the IDF destroyed one of the main tunnels underneath Al-Shifa Hospital moments before the truce took effect, and had also intensified its bombing campaign in Jabalia and the fighting in the Sajaiya area. And in addition, there was a barrage of rockets launched by Hamas right before the truce took effect. However, again, since 7 a.m., largely it has been upheld. In addition, scores of Palestinians were seen trying to move north as the truce took effect throughout the day. So upwards of 1.7 million Palestinians have been displaced and moved down south. There were reports that Palestinians may try to go back to their homes up north once the truce takes effect. The IDF had put out lots of different messages saying that this is not going to be permitted. According to AP, at least 2 Palestinians were killed and 11 were injured as they tried to burst through different IDF blockades in order to get up north. However, there are conflicting reports about this. Palestinian sources are reporting that 15 Palestinians were injured, but not actually reporting any deaths. The IDF did not confirm this either, and they stated that there was shooting that was done in the air and that riot gear was used in order to disperse Palestinians that were trying to get back up north. That is the only fighting that was reported on the ground in the Gaza Strip. In addition, the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, as well as the Foreign Minister in Israel, Eli Cohen, both stated today that following the truce, Israel is going to return to the fighting in full force, and the IDF also stated similar things. Regarding casualties, this is the first day after 50 days of fighting that, with the exception of that conflicting report of 2 Palestinians killed, there are no new deaths that are reported in the Gaza Strip on either side. Moving on to the humanitarian situation, 200 trucks were approved entry today carrying food, water, and medical supplies. Again, this is in accordance with the terms of the truce. According to the reports that were released, 137 of these crossed over in the last 24 hours, although likely the full 200 are going to cross over in the coming hours. In addition, 4 trucks of fuel carrying upwards of 129,000 liters of fuel entered the Gaza Strip and were dispersed into different UNRWA facilities. In addition, 4 trucks of natural cooking gas entered the Gaza Strip, and also they got to different refugee camps in order to ease the humanitarian crisis going on there. Moving on to the West Bank, there was intensive IDF activity reported today in the Romana village and in Aqba Jaber near Jericho. In Aqba Jaber, according to reports, the IDF had tried to arrest Muhammad Hanawi, who's a Palestinian Islamic Jihad activist. During the attempted arrest, there was a gun battle and he was killed in the operation. In addition, other activity of the IDF was reported in Hebron and Khalil village, where a weapons lab was discovered, and in the Kasbah of Nablus. A total of 10 Palestinians are reported arrested in the West Bank in the last 24 hours. Of these, 2 are Hamas operatives. Moving on to the north of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon, the ceasefire was largely upheld in the north of Israel as well, even though I again remind everyone that Hezbollah is actually not part of the ceasefire. They said that they would be part of it because they are supporting the fight in the Gaza Strip, and if in the Gaza Strip there's a truce, they will recognize it as well. However, there's no official deal that there will actually be a truce. Throughout the day, there was no fighting reported. In the evening, 1 surface-to-air missile was launched from Lebanon targeting an IDF drone. According to reports, it was intercepted, and that led to a lot of sirens and air raid alarms going off throughout the north of Israel and in the Haifa area. However, again, this was not actually rocket barrages into Israel. The IDF carried out 1 retaliatory attack against Hezbollah as a result of this. In addition, it was reported today in the Lebanese Nada al-Watan newspaper that civilians in towns and villages in southern Lebanon have received messages that the confrontation with Israel has ended, and thus many of them are returning home. So there were reports that between 45,000 and 80,000 Lebanese civilians had evacuated the southern parts of Lebanon, fearing ongoing escalations, and had fled to the north. According to this report, a lot of them received messages that the fighting is over, and thus they are returning to their homes down south. Moving on to some of the regional developments, Al Arabi Al Jadid today reported that there is disagreements among different Iraqi militias regarding their ongoing activity against U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria in light of the truce. According to the report, most of the militias support adhering to the truce, stating, like Hezbollah, that they are operating in support of Gaza, and thus if there is a truce in Gaza, they should also adhere to it, and for fears of disrupting the truce between Israel and Hamas. Others refused, stating that they are not part of the truce and that they will continue the fight against U.S. forces. Relatedly, the Houthi spokesperson in Yemen, Mohammed Abdul Salam, also made a statement today. He did not relate to how the Houthis will treat the truce. However, he did relate to the truce itself. He congratulated Palestinians on their resistance and stated that Israel achieved nothing in its major aggression against the Gaza Strip. It did not achieve any of its goals and was compelled to accept a ceasefire by the heroic resisting Palestinians. Moving on to some political and general trends today, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, Minister Gantz, who's part of the War Cabinet, and Defense Minister Gallant all vowed that they are going to continue the fight until all the hostages are returned. In addition, French President Macron today stated that his country is committed to secure the release of all hostages, specifically making note of the French citizens that remain in captivity. President Biden of the United States also made a statement in which he also expressed his commitment to the return of all hostages, and specifically referenced 3 U.S. citizens that are expected to be released as part of this current deal because, again, they match the criteria of the deal of releasing women or children. So 3 U.S. citizens are expected to be released. He called on the deal to be complete and to use this time of the truce in order to improve the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. President Biden also stated that he does not know how long the war will continue, but that he urges Israel to minimize harming people while striving for the legitimate goal of destroying Hamas. Related to this, the Qatari Foreign Minister today, Mohammed al-Khulaifi, stated that he hopes American citizens will be released in the coming days. Relating to some statements that were made by the different terror organizations, Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, stated that Hamas managed to confront the occupation. He stated, and I'm quoting, "We managed to break its will and foil its plans despite a great price. The Hamas movement reaffirmed its commitment to implement the agreement as long as the enemy commits to it as well." In addition, Ziad Nahallah, who is the leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, also put out a statement, and he said, and I quote, "The truce entered into effect after a month of ground assault, with Israel making grand statements. The resistance forced it to accept a hostage exchange, and the rest of her prisoners will not be released without the release of our own prisoners." He also stated that specifically the Israeli soldiers, the IDF soldiers that were kidnapped on October 7th, will not be released until 100% of Palestinian prisoners are released from Israeli jails. Moving on to the future of the Gaza Strip, Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas today made a statement in a meeting with UK Foreign Minister David Cameron, in which he stated, and I'm quoting, "We will foil any attempt to disconnect the Gaza Strip from the West Bank. There is no security solution or military solution to the Gaza Strip. Security and stability will only be achieved by a two-state solution. Gaza is an indispensable part of the Palestinian state." So this again expresses the Palestinian Authority's concern that some deal will be reached regarding Gaza specifically. The Palestinian Authority is saying that they want to be part of a deal that will include both Gaza and the West Bank and East Jerusalem, because this has to be some part of some sort of larger diplomatic solution towards a two-state solution. In addition, in a press conference today in Cairo, along with Belgium and Spanish prime ministers, Egyptian President Assisi made a very important statement. In it, he stated that the future Palestinian state can be demilitarized, and security control within it can be given, at least temporarily, to international forces. He stated, and I quote, "The state can be demilitarized and we can have guarantors, forces of NATO, UN, Americans, or Arabs, until we achieve security for both Israel and Palestine." This is critically important because this is the first time that any regional actor has stated that the future Gaza Strip may actually involve some sort of international or regional security control. Until now, there's always been criticism of what is Israel's plan. There's been statements that Israel needs to hand over the future Gaza Strip over to the Palestinian Authority. Israel has always said it is going to maintain its own security control. This is the first time we're seeing not only active thinking outside the box, but an actual statement that it is possible that this future may involve, at least temporarily, some sort of regional actors, international actors, NATO, the UN. So that is something to take note of. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.